Joni Mitchell is an artist who has created a rich tapestry of music. Incorporating a wealth of genre and subject matter, Mitchell has become an incomparable musician. She is also a songwriter at heart whose work can be traced under themes such as womanhood and philosophy. The lyrics create an intimate outlook that revolutionized the entire approach to lyricism and centers Joni Mitchell as the key female singer and songwriter of the 20th century. And over the years, Mitchell has taken reign of her albums and has inspired numerous artists to create their own music. Born in 1943, Joni was born as Roberta Joan Anderson. The family resided in Alberta, Canada during the Second World War and moved around the area. At this time, Mitchell's mother was working as a teacher and her father in the Canadian Air Force. Upon the war ending, they relocated to Saskatchewan, where they settled in its largest city of Saskatoon. Joni Mitchell was a creative child who showed interest in painting, playing the piano, and writing poetry. She was not keen on education as she found it restrictive. However, a teacher named Arthur Kratzman encouraged Mitchell to write poetry, leading to some of her first lyrics. Kratzman's influence was so strong that she mentioned his name in her debut album's dedications. Whilst she would later revisit her education, Mitchell decided to drop out of school when she was in grade 12. As a teenager, Mitchell became involved with troublesome groups before leaving and redirecting her energy into the rising popularity of country music. She began playing the guitar, which she would play alongside her friends who would sing along. Music quickly became the center of her universe. And as she approached adulthood, Joni Mitchell began touring locally alongside jazz and folk performers. The artists she met at this time would come to influence her sound greatly. Mitchell graduated and spent time pursuing her own passion, painting. However, the college she attended made her doubt her interests in the current tastes of art, and she decided to drop out, realigning her goals back into a music career. The 1960s consisted of music performances before her debut album was released. Entitled Songs to a Seagull, also known alternatively as Joni Mitchell. The album came out in 1968 and consisted of a predominantly folk sound. However, it was her second album, Clouds, that gave Mitchell attention and momentum. Clouds too was a folk album, but much of it differed from the debut. Firstly, Joni had a wealth of creative control, which would be a pattern seen throughout every release after. And she produced partially the album herself alongside Paul A. Rothchild and showcased her artistic talent by having the album artwork be a self-portrait. Clouds had a fair amount of success at its time of release, although it became a cult classic many years later after the tracks began being covered by popular artists. In 1970, Joni Mitchell released the pop, folk, and rock amalgamation, Ladies of the Canyon, which comprised of several songs that would later become staples in her discography. These included the spiritual Woodstock and the environmental anthem Big Yellow Taxi. The album encapsulated the culture of the 1960s and early 1970s, documenting Mitchell's friendships, love, and social experiences at that time. In some way, it was a coming-of-age album, which would serve as a transition between Joni Mitchell's earlier folk work and her later, more mature music. For the rest of the decade, she released 7 more bodies of work. Her presence at this time was very prominent and active. Among these 7 is Joni Mitchell's iconic Blue, which came out in '71. Mitchell reflects on the album as an example of her bearing it all, unprotected and unguarded. She had endured a few intense but failed relationships in the build-up to this album, including a high-profile one with James Taylor. There is a major catharsis that is being processed by Mitchell on the album, where she is not yet fully self-realized. Blue lets us join at a time where artists do not tend to let us in. Known for being fiercely autobiographical, this is the album that truly started it off for Joni Mitchell. Today, Blue exists as one of the very greats included in most top album lists. Another release, Court and Spark in '73, is a significant release in Mitchell's career. Its style drifts from the loyalty of folk and delves into elements of pop and jazz music. The jazz components were an instant success, receiving commercial and critical praise galore. Lyrically, Court and Spark continue with the themes of sorrowful love. And other notable works in the decade include The Hissing of Summer Lawns in 75 and Hejira in 76. Joni Mitchell began to be awarded an array of accolades for her work, including Grammys and RIAA certifications. Into the 1980s and 1990s, Joni Mitchell consistently created new music. Notably, she changed labels from Asylum to Geffen Records, a fresh label founded by her friend David Geffen. She also embarked on world tours, playing in countries such as Japan, Belgium, and Germany. And whilst Mitchell was still actively singing, her voice began to shift into lower octaves. Many speculations about the causes behind this occurred, but Mitchell claimed it was the long-term effects of contracting polio as a child which caused her vocal range to limit. Joni Mitchell became increasingly critical of the music industry and how labels behaved as she entered the 2000s. She announced her retirement, hoping to spend her time involved in environmental causes. However, she released her 19th album, Shine, in 2007, and to this day is her most recent. Since Mitchell's material has consisted of compilation releases and a range of high-profile covers of her songs from the likes of Annie Lennox, George Michael, and Tori Amos. Her work is heavily covered and sampled by a range of artists across a variety of genres, making her work some of the most versatile and popular ever. Joni Mitchell has undergone a series of health problems, which she has worked on to raise awareness and understanding of. She suffered from a brain aneurysm, which left her unable to walk well, and she has been learning to walk again since 2015. Nonetheless, Joni Mitchell has continued to influence the world of music. She is an example of an artist who is unbound by gender, whose guitar and piano style is admirable to many. Her music is timeless, much due to her distinctive and confessional lyricism, which was unlike anything at its time of release. In terms of contemporary artists, Joni Mitchell has influenced the likes of Taylor Swift, Lorde, Madonna, and Haim. Her artistry is seen as untouchable royalty, which has endured over 6 decades and shows no signs of diminishing. She is undoubtedly one of the most significant singer-songwriters of the 20th century and beyond. You can check out the Carly of Spotify to listen to the original tracks of the artist. It's a curated playlist with the most popular songs.